Joining me now, Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization, also former President Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump. So we're competing with the sound check right now. They're practicing Home of the Brave.
Beautiful.
I got to talk to you. You know, I've known you a long time, Eric, and what happened on Saturday was scary. How are you doing?
It's beyond scary. Beyond scary. It should have never been allowed to happen. I mean, I was telling you before, but I was there with my 6-year-old child, my 6-year-old son, my 4-year-old daughter, and Laura, my wife, and we're sitting there watching it on TV, and then all of a sudden you hear the gunshots rain out, and your heart sinks. And I've done a lot of competitive shooting. I know the world very, very well, and there's no mistaking what those were. And then you see him on the ground, and you clearly saw that he got hit. He grabbed the side of his face, and you're just thinking of the worst. And they were on the ground for 45 seconds, 60 seconds, and it felt like an eternity. And then you see him get up, and you see the blood on the side of his face. I mean, we almost witnessed the assassination of a former president and probably a future president on live TV. And not only would it be devastating to me as a son, I mean, there's no one in the world I love more, but think about how that's devastating to a nation. I mean, civil wars have broken out for less than that, and also just think about our posture on the world stage, having our leaders get executed by maniacs on top of roofs. It can't happen in the United States of America.
How do you feel about the Secret Service?
So I know all those agents on stage, and they're the greatest people ever. In fact, the female that's in the picture, she's with me for a very long time, and she's one of the greatest human beings you'll ever meet. I would do anything for her, and I would do anything for her. I'm telling you, Katie, they're the greatest people ever. And every single one of those people would have taken a bullet for him that day, and they did. They jumped in, and I don't put any of this on them. In fact, I laud them for their courageousness and being heroes that day, because they could have gotten killed as well. They easily could have gotten. Those bullets were flying over them just as closely as they were flying over my father. At the same time, they moved with him to a location, right? That location's already secure. Whatever happened in terms of the setup of that location, whoever allowed a rooftop that large to be unsecure at 130 yards, whoever allowed a madman to crawl up on that rooftop with a rifle, there are real questions to be answered. And it hurts my soul because, again, I know the dedication of the Secret Service. I know those people intimately. I know their family. I know and these are some of the finest people you'll ever meet, and they would have taken a bullet for them, and they almost did that day. But there was some breakdown. Outside of his ecosystem, there was some breakdown, and they better get to the bottom of it.
Very clearly. I want to show some images from last night of your dad coming in. Yeah. He had a look on his face, and I've been around for a while. I know your dad well. I've never seen the look that he had on his face last night. Yeah. He looked serene, overwhelmed, emotional, almost like he would cry. He's mentioned that this has changed him and it's necessitated a change to his speech. Have you seen the keynote speech? Is it going to have different language? Because the language he uses can be pretty tough, and that's putting it diplomatically.
I think that the language used in the political ecosystem of the United States is pretty tough, and maybe it's a great reminder that everybody's got to tone it down a little bit. Yes, the language is different. It's a beautiful speech. What I will tell you about last night, it was somber, it was emotional. I mean, he was millimeters from having his head blown off on, again, national TV, right, in front of his grandchildren, in front of 30, 40, 50,000 people who would walk over broken glass for him. And I think that puts life in perspective, as to what's important, what's not. When he walked out here yesterday, he walks into, first of all, a beautiful song, which was just so perfect and reflective of the moment, God Bless USA. And you have that playing, and you have people crying, and you have people cheering and chanting USA, people who love the United States of America. The very way he's been demonized over the years, these very people have been demonized, and I think it's one of the reasons that they express themselves the way they do.
But can you give us any previews of the keynote? Anything specifically different that he's going to say?
Listen, this is his big moment, so I'll let him do that. But I'm proud of it. I'm proud of him. He's never stopped fighting. When he got off the ground on that stage, and he's got blood running down his face, and he says, "Fight, fight, fight." Katie, regardless of political affiliation, this country has real problems, like real problems on a lot of front, and you need somebody who's willing to fight for it. And I want that coach. I want that winning NFL coach who's going to fight for their team. Like, my father is that guy to the United States of America. He wants to fight for the United States of America. He wants to make America great economically, militarily, in every way, shape, or form. And you might not always agree with him, right? Not everybody needs to agree on everybody, but no one can say that he's not an amazing fighter for this country. No one can say he doesn't have more love for this country than anyone. And I think that was on full display as he had, again, blood running down his face saying, fight, 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 USA, USA, USA.
Let me ask you about policy, because today's theme is Make America Safe Again. Immigration is going to be a huge part of it. In terms of immigration policy for a second Trump term, if he does get one, there's been talk about wanting to deport more immigrants than ever, and that's part of the platform here. Stephen Miller has said that he wants to deport 1 million in a year. Is there going to be any exceptions to that? Are you going to look at families? Are you going to look at children who were brought here when they were young and have spent their whole lives here? Or is it just going to be a mass deportation? If you don't have papers, you're leaving.
Yeah. Katie, this argument is like crazy to me. My mom was an immigrant to the U.S., and she was an amazing woman. She made New York, she came and made, obviously, the United States her home. She learned language. She became accustomed. And by the way, when she died, I am a United States citizen, right? She was proud of that. I don't know why we can't have legal immigration where people come in and they play by the rules. We have a whole we have a branch that can set the rules, make the laws. Who comes in? Who doesn't? Who do we want in this country? Who do we not want in this country? Have a pathway for people to come into this country. But we ought to know who those people are, and we ought to let people in legally, and we ought to also not let in, a lot of bad people. There are.
But what about the people that are already here? And what about the kids who were brought here, who have been working hard, who've only seen this as their home, who only know the U.S.?
Yeah, and hearts break, right? I'm a compassionate person. I'm actually a much more compassionate person than you could ever possibly imagine. But what about our citizens? What about the illegal immigrants who are literally taking up every single room in New York City hotels at taxpayer dollars while our taxpayers struggle, while veterans in this country are sleeping under underpasses all over the nation? What about them? Why can't we take care of our veterans? Why can't we take care of our own? Why can't we curb the costs on absolutely everything? Why can't we put Americans first? So I'm compassionate. In fact, you and I have known each other a long time. You know how compassionate I am, right? My whole life has been spent dedicated to saving dying children at St. Jude. I've got the biggest heart in the world, but at some point, we actually have to look internally in this country and say, maybe we take care of that veteran who went to war for our nation, and maybe we give them one of those hotel rooms as opposed to somebody who came across the border 3 days ago.
My question was more specifically the Dreamers who have been here for a while, but I want to point out that Nikki Haley is on stage right now. Nikki Haley obviously ran a contentious campaign against your father. These are moderate voters that voted for her, that your father needs. Does J.D. Vance speak to them?
I think so.
Why?
I do. And I think the whole party speaks to them. And I think the lunacy in this world speaks to those people. Katie, these people are struggling. And no one can tell you, and no news outlet could cover up for the fact that Americans are struggling right now. Everything's unaffordable. People aren't making it. Rent's crazy. Inflation's crazy. Utilities are crazy. The price of food's crazy. People are working unthinkable hours and no one's getting ahead anymore. And then you've got real problems in this country where people are coming in, taking jobs. I've had 4 friends that have lost kids to fentanyl, and no one's doing a damn thing about that problem. I mean, go down the litany of things, and I think those people are migrating over the party awfully quickly, and I think the fact that people have tried to cover that up is an incredibly dangerous thing.
Can I ask you one more question on policy, and that's the question of abortion? Your father has said that this is a state's issue. He's disavowed Project 2025, said they go way too far on abortion. Can you say unequivocally that if he does get into office, that he will not allow the federal government to use its powers to make abortion even harder from a federal government perspective, to not use the Comstock Act to, make it illegal to send abortion pills or send abortion tools?
I think the answer is yes. Listen, he wants to send it back to the states, and that's the right place for it to
be.
be.
So the federal government's going to have no say. They're not going to make it harder to get the abortion pill to the FDA.
Just be completely honest with you. My father wants to fix the broken roof, right? In this country. This country has a broken roof, and that broken roof is immigration. That broken roof is the economy. That broken roof is, millions of people. I mean, we're literally paying. Our taxpayer dollars are literally spurring wars all over the world, right? On both sides of those wars. My father wants to stop the madness of the world. He wants to stop the wars. He wants to fix our economy. He wants our country to be safe. He wants our educational system to rank 30th in the world. He wants our educational system to be ranked #1 in the world. And, it seems like we always get distracted. Not that abortion isn't incredibly charged.
I was going to ask you if that's not that distraction, because a lot of folks would say no.
Yeah, maybe people don't, but I can tell you, my father, he's a very micro guy. He's also a very macro guy, and he wants to fix the fundamental problems that we have in this country and stop worrying about these sideshows. I mean, whether you're on one side of the equation or the other, right? Leah Thomas swimming in women's sports, you can be on both sides of that issue, right? One person might be on one side. I'm clearly on one side of that issue, but that's not of grave importance to our nation when you just had 300,000 children dead of fentanyl that's coming from China, coming through the Mexican border and poisoning our youth. And I think we sometimes have to take the holistic view. We have to zoom out. What's important? Let's fix the leaky roof of our house. And then we can start tackling those things, but we got to get back to the basics.
I've got to leave it here. Eric Trump, thank you so much for joining us. And on the question of abortion, I did hear you say that unequivocally not going to use the federal government's power to try to curb abortion even more, that it is just a states' rights issue.
At the states, yes.
Got it. Eric Trump, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.